Welcome to the complete Python productivity and debugging techniques course with PyCharm. My name is Martin Yanev, your instructor. This course will help you to increase your Python coding productivity by a factor of 4. PyCharm is the industry standard IDE among all Python developers. Every beginner or expert user of Python programming language looking to improve their productivity can greatly benefit from the PyCharm productivity and debugging techniques course. So we will begin by discussing the process of managing and customizing your PyCharm workplace, as well as choosing Python interpreters and virtual environment. You will get a detailed view on how PyCharm supports the development of Python applications. And more specifically, we will look at the features in PyCharm that support code inspection, code completion, refactoring, and handling Python documentation. You will learn how to manage your version control with the integrated Git functionality in PyCharm. This course will give you a hands-on tutorial on how to facilitate version control with Git. It will also cover concepts such as adding, committing, pushing, branching, and merging. Then we will focus on testing, debugging, and profiling with PyCharm. I will show you how to debug your code like a pro, and you will learn how to discover errors quickly and efficiently. Important course notes. PyCharm is the major IDE used in the industry from all developers to work with Python, and there is a good reason for that. PyCharm involves support for absolutely all the functionalities of Python. By using it, you're getting Git support, advanced error handling better than any other IDE that is suitable for all types of programming languages. No, here we're concentrating on Python and we're really getting the best with PyCharm. Installing Python and PyCharm. Hi everyone and welcome back to this course, and here you learn how to install the required IDE for the course, PyCharm and Python. So the first thing you need to do is to go to python.org and also open another tab and go to jetbeans.com PyCharm. And PyCharm is basically IDE created from JetBeans that is specifically created to work with Python and is the best IDE used by users and the companies to develop Python projects. So knowing PyCharm is very important if you plan to go into the industry. But let's first things first. Let's download Python here. It's actually quite simple. Just hit downloads and choose the version of your operating system. So if you use Windows, select Windows. If you use Mac OS like me, select Mac. And once you selected the required version of your operating system, select the last Python that you can download. And here select the version that is for your computer. For example, I will select Mac OS Big Sur because I have Mac OS with Big Sur operating system. So once I select that, you see that the Python for specifically my operating system will download and I will be able to install it. Then you can go to the PyCharm page and simply click download, and automatically PyCharm will recognize your operating system. And obviously here you will select the community PyCharm, so it's for free, and you can obviously choose, depending on your Mac or your Windows or Linux, the version of PyCharm you would like to use. And again, since I'm using Apple Silicon, I will select that one. And now you can see that the PyCharm is downloading inside my computer. So once you have both Python and Eclipse downloaded, select the Python file and a window will pop up. So you can press here continue, then you will see the license agreements and you will press continue, then agree with the license agreement and choose the disk in which you want to install your Python, and finally click install. And so once you click install, just type your password and Python will start installing inside your computer. Okay, so you can see that now Python started installing, and once the Python is installed, of course you will get the message that the Python is installed successfully, and this means that you can proceed with installing the PyCharm. So when Python is finally installed, you will see this window to pop up, and so now you have it inside your computer, and this means that you can proceed with the installing of PyCharm. So select the PyCharm file, and this is a DMG file in my case because I'm using a Mac. So then simply drag and drop the PyCharm inside the application folder. Then go to your applications and you can simply select the PyCharm and select open here. And you can see that PyCharm is now running to your computer, and now you're completely able to create project and execute PyCharm code. So for example, if you want to create a new project, you can simply select this button, name it, and then you have a folder in which you have this project installed. So if I select create here, you will be prompted to the PyCharm IDE, and here you will be able to edit and create different projects. I will select close here, and you can see that all the updates are installing while you're using PyCharm. So when you open it at first, don't close it immediately so you can have everything installed. So that's everything, guys, that you need to know about PyCharm, and this is going to be our IDE of use for the future projects. You need only Python and PyCharm installed. That's it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next section. What is PyCharm? Hi everyone, and welcome to this course where we're going to talk about PyCharm. And in this specific video I will give you some brief introduction about where PyCharm stands in the Python world. And actually the role of PyCharm is really important, used by many companies, and it's an essential part of using Python today. So PyCharm by definition is something called IDE. So let's first talk about what IDE is. So for every good development environment, the first step for better productivity is to have some tool that enables us, the programmers, to inspect different aspects of the computer program. So IDE basically represents a tool that allows us to use a programming language more efficiently, because if you just think about it, a code or a file with code is basically a simple text file. So in order to manage multiple Python files, we need something to organize these files, to organize the code there so it is easy to read, and make sure that we don't make errors in this code. So if you can see, this is how a code looks inside an IDE and outside IDE. Obviously this is not a Python code, but you can really get the concept here. So with a normal text editor, you can basically not spot absolutely anything, while with the IDE you are getting different colors, different code orientation, so you can kind of have a sense of what the different components of your program are doing. For example, here obviously the nice day is the name of our class. Also, it's an IDE out, we can easily see that it's in parentheses, and this is a statement that is going to be printed, and we can really say this just with a quick glance when we have a quick look on our code, which you can definitely not do if your code doesn't exist or it's not opened by a specialized editor as an IDE. And actually to write a code you can use a lot of different tools, even some of them are already built in your computer. For example, one of the tools that you can use, it's the simple text editor. So you can actually create a fully functional program by simply writing things in the text editor, right? So I can do def, then I can write a function name, hello, right? Then I can pass some arguments here and do print hello, for example, right? I can definitely do that. And this code will work, right? However, it is pretty ugly, and if I need to create multiple files, well, in that case, I will need to open other windows as well. So I need to open another one for another file, then another one for a different file, and so on and so on. So this is not really going to work, and not only the code will look ugly, but also at the same time, I will need to save these files in the same location. I will not be able to write multiple lines of code, and I can really not keep track on the format of my code, right? So this would definitely not work. Now, however, every operating system, actually most of them, are having the terminal, and from the terminal you also have something called Vim, which is a text editor. And this is actually a better way to write code, because you already have some more structure here, right? So you can again write def, hello, you are getting some structure here, tab is working fine, and you already get a little bit better view. But also, if you want to create multiple files, even though you have a little more options here, you still need to create the file separately. You need to save them into the same directory, and so on and so on. So for that reason, we're having IDEs, and you're basically not getting any text highlights. So this is the same as if you would like to edit some text. For example, where is better to edit? In Word, where you have the grammar check, or in the text editor? Well, I can definitely tell you, if I misspell some word, for example, the word hello, I will definitely get some error here, but not in the text editor, right? You can make the difference quite easily. So I would definitely prefer writing text in Word, because in the text editor I can make many mistakes and I will not be aware for that, right? And what I really want to do is to concentrate on the really important mistakes, but not wasting my time on the really sloppy and simple mistakes that are repetitive and can be fixed automatically. So you can take IDE in the same way. So IDE, it's like the Word for the text editing. So you will get all the code checks, the syntax checks, and so on. You'll be able to manage different projects, implement different toolkits. So overall, the main purpose of the IDE is to make you way more productive and able to avoid critical mistakes and understand your errors way faster. Now let's talk a little bit what is PyCharm and how it is so related to Python. Why it is PyCharm? Why we have an IDE specifically for Python? Well, let's begin by discussing the Python as a programming language and why we should choose specifically PyCharm to work with Python. So as we discussed, IDEs are used in order to get way more productive with programming language, because they really predict some of the code that you would write, and also they're preventing you from doing a simple error. PyCharm is specifically designed for Python. As you probably know, many of the IDEs can be used for different programming languages, including PyCharm. However, PyCharm is built specifically to work with Python code and has a lot of built-in libraries in order to write and predict Python code, so you can really simplify and ease the way you're writing scripts with Python. So here you really simplify the way how you install modules, how you manage modules and packages, as they're some of the core concepts that are surrounding Python. And PyCharm is really worth it to be learned today, because as you can see, Python is one of the most popular programming languages, and actually since now it is 2022, you can be sure that the Python growth continue even to that year, and actually now Python is used way more than the rest of the programming languages on that graph. In fact, it is used by more than 39% of the programmers today. And it is true, in most of the companies that I've been working, we're heavily using Python, and I can give you an example. In one of the companies I was working, Cisco Systems, programmers were not allowed to operate with Python code in any other IDE than PyCharm. PyCharm was a standard there. And there are reasons why Python is so popular today. This is due to the fact that it is very user-friendly, readable. The syntax is really simple. You don't have columns and semicolons surrounding the code. It is actually really the most accessible, free to use programming language. And in the past few years, most of the universities worldwide are really redesigning their computer science courses to incorporate classes using Python. The fact that the language is quite easy is the most important thing for the popularity of Python. So if you're beginner in programming, you're more than likely to start with Python and understand it very quick. And the fact that Python is so simple really helps the companies to get more productive. In fact, there is a book written by Jidu Van Rusum, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, but this guy compared Python with the rest of the most popular programming languages, and he found out that Python is actually 3 to 5 times faster than Java and 5 to 10 times faster than C and C++. So this is a huge difference. So all those factors resulted for the community to be growing stronger and stronger every day. And for that reason, Python libraries and packages are also being developed and released regularly. They are supported by millions of developers worldwide and used by software engineers, video game developers, API programmers, and more and more and more. So, because of the crazy growth of Python, more and more tools, frameworks, and environments written on Python are built every year, and for that reason, Python is really easy to access and simple to run on any computer device and operating system. So I hope you liked this introduction, guys. Thanks for watching, and in the next video we're going to talk about the core advantages of PyCharm as Python IDE. Thanks for watching. If you ever wanted to create from scratch a complete Python web application using Flask in Django, check out our completely free mini course from the link in the description. Now let's get back to the course. PyCharm as the major Python IDE. Hi everyone, today we're going to concentrate a little bit more on PyCharm, and I'm going to tell you why PyCharm is actually better than the rest of the IDEs that you can use with Python. So PyCharm was actually first introduced in 2010, but the community version, the fully operational free version, was released in 2013. So PyCharm is free to download and it is an IDE developed by JetBeans. So according to the creator of PyCharm, to build that IDE there were two core principles. The first one is to improve the productivity. The reason for that is that the productivity is undoubtedly the most important feature for any good IDE. Again, PyCharm takes away most of the repetitive and really not creative aspects of creating a program with Python, especially if you're using it for large projects. It really helps to the programmers to concentrate on the core development instead of the repetitive tasks. Then you're getting the real-time assistance. So imagine here that you have to complete a large project and you realize afterwards that there are some inconsistencies and errors spreading all over the code. This is really not fun, isn't it? So PyCharm would look and address those problems because it has an intelligent assisting feature. So you can run your code real time, and even while typing your code, the error check will be on and it will work on your code. You also get quick fixes, and IDE will make sure that you incorporate the PEP8 code styles. So to facilitate those principles, PyCharm also includes an intelligent coding assistance, which gives you a real-time support. It offers code completion options, syntax and error analysis, as well as automated ways to refactor your code. We'll actually look at those principles later on in this course, and I will introduce you to the smart search option in this section so you will see how easy it is to navigate in PyCharm. The next core concept is the streamlined programming tools. Again, programming is only a part of the actual development process. Most of the time, programmers have to spend their time debugging, testing, and profiling their code. They need to manage databases, packages, and modules that are necessary for their projects. As a programmer, I can tell you that actually about 70% of the time is spent for those tasks, and only 30% of the actual programming time is spent for the actual writing of code. So here, PyCharm introduces a very straightforward graphical user interface, which allows you to achieve all of those structures in very consistent, unified, and painless way. Now here it comes the good part, and actually the part that really shows how PyCharm is better than the other IDEs, and the reason is that you have a very good web development options here. As a result of the fast-growing nature of Python, web development is becoming more and more common in the Python community. This is why PyCharm places a high attention on good support systems. This is done for web development projects. Specifically, there are various Python web development frameworks such as Django, Web2Py, and Flask. You also get support for JavaScript, CoffeeScript, TypeScript, HTML, CSS, Angular, JS, Node.js, and many others. So you can really build a fully operational project and even add some front-end programming languages here in order to complete your Python project, and all of this will be supported by PyCharm. The next thing that PyCharm is really good at is a scientific computing support. The growth of the data science has played an important role in the growth of Python. Python is actually one of the most common programming tools used in the scientific projects. It is today even more used than the other tool from that sector called R. So as you can see, there is a really notable functionality included in Python to facilitate the scientific computing, and those are called IPython notebooks. We're of course going to talk about the PyCharm support in a little bit more detail regarding the scientific fields, but we're going to focus on that a little bit later in that course. You can organize different workplaces in your scientific project, and this is called sky view. As you can see on the figure displayed in front of you, you can see the different results, whether they're true, false. You can organize those sheets and data in the way that you prefer and that you like. The final thing I want to talk about is the visual debugging, which is offered by adding an additional functionality to Python. Usually in Python you can debug easily by writing print statements, but in PyCharm you are getting a graphical user interface that visualizes different steps into the debugging process. This is not only faster than the PDB debugger, which is a tool that really helps you debug your Python code at runtime. PyCharm allows you to view and customize the changes via looking the breakpoints, so you can basically set those breakpoints and run your code and then debug it from the breakpoints that you previously initialized in your code. But of course we're going to talk about this in the detail. This is just a brief overview. Of course, PyCharm features do not stop here, because you really have a lot of support. Even in many projects you are going to be working with Git, things like version control, branches, merging different types of changes. So you really get support for that as well. And actually the Git support of PyCharm, it's a very good one, and I'm using it every day while working my software development job. So these were all the key features of PyCharm, and some of them we're really going to expand in this course. Thank you guys for watching, and in the next video I will show you how PyCharm compares to the rest of the IDEs out there. Thanks for watching. Comparing PyCharm with other IDEs. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this video I want to show you the two main PyCharm competitors and really share to you the advantages of PyCharm over them, and also some of the disadvantages as well. So the first IDE we're going to talk about is actually another, and this is the only other specific Python IDE created so far, and this is called Spider. It's as well a lightweight development software. It definitely results way less memory space comparing to PyCharm, but it lacks some of the functionalities that are available in PyCharm, and in some cases might not simplify your work as much as you wish to. So as you can see from the picture here, Spider has quite a similar user interface to PyCharm, and it also looks quite similar to one graphical user interface of another IDE, which is the IDE of MATLAB, if you're familiar with the software. So if you were using MATLAB in the past and you want to move to Python, maybe you will find this IDE quite beneficial and easy to learn, as it is quite similar to MATLAB. PyCharm might be found as an IDE that has slightly more options and might look slightly more complicated at first glance, but in general, the productivity improvement of PyCharm is way higher comparing to the one of the Spider. In the past, actually Spider was superior to PyCharm because it had the option for exploring a variable, which means that you could check the values of the variables and how they change in your code while running the IDE, but this option is also available now in PyCharm, so it really doesn't make a difference anymore. But there is one factor that really differs both of those softwares and gives a very big advantage to PyCharm. And this is an aspect of the really complex real world programming, or the programming that you will actually be faced working for a large company, working on a very big scale software. And this is the PyCharm version control and maintenance using Git, also the improved features for testing and debugging, profiling, and so on. So definitely if you're working with your team on Python code or Python project over the web, I would definitely use PyCharm in that case because it really has a very good version control tools. Now, let's compare then, and it really makes sense to compare PyCharm with another IDE called Visual Studio Code, which is actually the most famous multi-purpose IDE in the world, which also had a very good Git version control. So as Visual Studio Code is quite good for Git, it accesses the script from the terminal, which is by the way also available from PyCharm. This IDE sometimes could be quite overloaded if you use it with different programming languages. Well, you would say then, how about if I use it only for Python? Of course, this is a good quality IDE. It would give you very good results and you very rarely have problems using any type of code. However, the slight advantage of PyCharm is that there you have way better supporting for the Python common frameworks such as Jupyter Notebook and Anaconda. There you can do a real-time analysis and refactoring of your code, which are not really possible with the Visual Studio Code, specifically for Python. Don't get me wrong, for any other programming language, Visual Studio Code is a really good IDE and I would definitely use it with C++, Java, and so on. However, it didn't find its way yet to be better than PyCharm. In any case, I want you to know those two other IDEs just to put them in your mind, and if you use some of those, you will definitely see the improvement when using PyCharm, which is specific Python IDE. That's it guys, thank you very much for watching this video and I will see you in the next one. PyCharm Professional versus Community Edition. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the big differences between PyCharm Community and PyCharm Professional version. Obviously, for the professional version you would need to pay money. You of course have free trial. But in the community version, you will be able to use most of the PyCharm tools and actually all of the PyCharm tools that you need for this course completely free. So in general, you would not need to buy the professional version for that course. However, I'm gonna point here the advantages and the disadvantages of each of those versions so you can make your own informed choice. So obviously, all the features included in the community edition are also included in the professional edition. So all core functionalities of the graphical user interface that puts the PyCharm ahead of the rest of the IDEs are fortunately available for both editions. So it doesn't matter which one you download, you're going to get all the core features of the PyCharm IDE. Those include real-time code analyzer, graphical debugging features, refactoring, testing, version control, management of packages, and virtual environments. So the real-time analyzing tools, which are basically fixing the errors in your code, are also going to be there for both editions. So what is the main difference into the professional version is actually, you can see it here, is a support for other programming languages. So for example, the support for JavaScript, for CoffeeScript, along with the frameworks such as Django, Flask, Web2Py are actually not included in the community version, but only the professional one. However, this doesn't mean that you cannot use these tools in the community version. You just need to install those tools, but you might not get a fully operational support for those, which means that your basic Python syntax errors are again going to be fixed. Of course, everything will be supported, but there will be some function-specific features that might not be supported by the community version, but only with the professional one. So as long as you're not writing super huge Flask programs or Django applications that you need to save some additional time from writing the code there, then you would probably need and you will find the need for using the professional version. Also, tools such as ScanView and some viewers for pandas and NumPy data structures are also included only for the professional editions. Again, those are only visual tools. This doesn't mean that you cannot run pandas and NumPy data structures. It is just you will get better support and better view on the professional version. Now, if you decide to get the professional version for some reason, again, you are not going to need the professional version for that course. I even advise you not to download it, but to download the community one and only download the professional one if you really feel the need for that in the future, but not now. But in any case, if you want to see the pricing for the professional version, well, it is if you're a company or organization, it is, as you can see, $199 per person, and if you're individual, it is $89 per person. Okay. However, the good thing is that if you're a student in any university that support IC cards or you have a university email, you can simply provide your university email while registering for JetBeans, and then you would get PyCharm Professional completely free. So you can simply use your student email or even the student email of a friend. It really doesn't matter because it's all automatic. You can get PyCharm Professional for free, which I definitely advise you to do, especially if you're a student. There is no need not to use this feature. So that was all I wanted to share about the community and the professional version. I really wanted to make this video so you're aware what you have on the market, guys. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. PyCharm theme and editor. Hi everyone, in that video we're going to talk about how you can set your PyCharm general preferences, and to do that let's write PyCharm in the Spotlight search, and this will open the PyCharm editor, but here is basically a window that allows you to open different type of projects that you're working on. But at the same time, if you have never worked on any projects, this field will be empty and you will be able to create a new project, to open existing project, or get project from VCS file. If you select here on customize, you can select the color theme that you would like to have. So you can see that the default theme is dark-O, but you can use macOS Light, IntelliJ Light, or the high contrast if you really want to distinguish very good between the different colors. Also, you can set up the font as well. As you can see, you can choose different types of font. Actually, I will increase my font so you can see the text better when I'm typing it, or maybe 16 is going to be enough in our case. So also the KeyMap, you can use macOS, Emacs, IntelliJ Classic, and so on and so on. Then here you can add different plugins. You can add the Git plugin, the GitHub plugin, Space, and so on and so on. Just bear in mind that we might go over those plugins and languages once we actually need them. So far you don't need to do absolutely anything. You can see that all of them, they have ticks. So in order to show you the preferences, let's create a new project and let's open that project. Here these buttons are a little bit hidden because I really zoomed in so you can see what I'm doing right here better, but this is basically the confirmation button, and then a project will be automatically generated. As you can see here, you have the main file which you can in which you can write Python code, and here is a virtual environment which contains the Python libraries. So one very important thing that you should know about PyCharm is that it is very easy to find options here, and you can see those buttons that are giving you some suggestions on shortcut. So for example, if you click double or if you click 2 times shift, you are getting the search, and this is the all field search, so you can search absolutely everything that you like. So let's use that search and write here appearance, okay, or actually let's instead write preferences for new projects. Okay, you can see here, and here you see this window, guys, and in this window you're basically able to choose the different colors, scopes, and so on. So you can choose here your code style, the code inspections. Basically, for example, see here for HTML, you have certain type of color style, Python unit test style, setup script, and so on. So you can expect that this is how your code is going to be looking like, and obviously you can change that from here. You can choose, for example, from file colors, you can choose the new file colors, which I have set to yellow. Basically I'm using most of the default settings, to be honest. You can also choose what type of colors you would like if you're operating with Git. So please feel free to go to this tool and basically configure all the colors, fonts, scopes, and types of checks that you would like PyCharm to do, and remove the ones that are blurring you or you don't want to see. Okay, so this is how you can basically set the new project creation, and those settings are going to be applied to every new project that you generate. You can even control the line wrapping, and for example, if you go here to code style, so we are going to editor, code style, and then Python, you can select this wrapping and brackets, and you see how your code is going to be displayed in different cases. So this will control how long the line of code in your projects is going to be. If you can see this vertical line here, basically this will be displayed on every file you create, and it will show you where you should stop and move to the next line, right? So in order to keep clean coding, you can set this line from here, and then make sure that your code doesn't go away, or doesn't go, for example, like here, doesn't go away of this line, so it is clean and easy to read for the rest of the users. So the default setup is actually aligned with the PEP 8 standards, coding standards of Python. So if you want to align with those standards, you actually don't need to do anything. However, there are some options that you might like to add. For example, if you would like to go on new line after you write a bracket, you can select this one, and you can do those for the method declaration, for method calls, for import statements, and so on. So you can see that the PyCharm editor really understands what exactly you're doing, so you have the right type of options, and you can get very productive. You can also control the spaces in your code, as you can see, and actually if you are not aligning with those guidelines, for example, how should be written function, what should be the spacing that you set in your code, you are going to get a warning, and you can simply click on this warning, and the code automatically will get aligned with the specifications and with the coding style and guidelines that you specified here. So if we hit OK, let's go to our main file so you can see what I'm talking about. So here you cannot actually see the line because the line is right here in the periphery of our project, but settings, and I actually increase that window, you can clearly see that there is a line right here. So always, if you see that your code start to reach this line, you can definitely move to the next one in order to keep with the coding standard. So this is the purpose of the line here. So if you go back to the editor, okay, and we go to the font tab, which can be found by clicking double shift, and then if you write font, it is in preferences, console font. So if you go here, actually you can see it right here in general. So just go to editor and then font here, and you can choose the font style. So this one is specific JetBeans font style, as you can see. So from here you can basically choose what font you would like to have inside your editor, but I would advise you to use the JetBeans Mono because it is a really good font, and it's specifically created for Python. So let's close that window and let's open again preferences for new projects. So if you click here on the editor and you go to code style, actually let's hit the code style, you can see that you have some settings regardless of what type of file you're editing. So from here you can edit the line spacer, which is good to be set as system dependent. You can obviously select your operating system, but there is really no reason for that, because PyCharm will automatically detect your system. Also, you can do the hard wrap and you can set it to 120 characters as it is by default. You can also set it at 79 characters, which is the other most famous standard. So let's close that window. I think that was enough for the editors and the project specification. So you know now how you can basically configure your new project. So I'm gonna call the end of this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and in the next one we're going to talk about the KeyMap and some other features of PyCharm that you might want to explore. KeyMap and shortcut optimization. Hi everyone. You might notice that on the left hand side of the navigation there is the KeyMap tab right here. So you can easily find it like this and just select KeyMap. So you would go to the preferences and here you can see how the KeyMap works. So first of all, what KeyMap means? In the most general sense, KeyMap is the way your computer system defines the mapping of keys. And this includes both the keyboard keys and the buttons from the external hardware or mouse. And changing KeyMap buttons could mean that, for example, if you want to select something with the right click of the mouse but not with the left one, you can definitely do that from here. So you can basically configure your keys from the KeyMap. So what is that macOS, Emacs, and so on? Well, here you define different KeyMap settings for your device that you would like to use. For example, macOS might use different keymaps or different combination of keys comparing to other tools. So in order to set different shortcuts, this is really related to the keymaps. So as you can see, here we have multiple options, and for example, if you are transitioning from Sublime Text to PyCharm, you can definitely choose the Sublime Text editor KeyMap and apply it into the PyCharm, so you basically use the same keys for the same operations. You can also use the Emacs keys, the IntelliJ keys, which is another IDE created from JetBeans, and so on. You can even get more keymaps if you install plugins. So you can simply choose a tool that you're using or an IDE and definitely check if there is a plugin so you can install it in PyCharm and basically make PyCharm to act in the same way with the same keys that you are using to this other IDE. And this is one of the reasons why PyCharm is so amazing, because PyCharm don't want you to forget the shortcuts that you remembered and gained experience with from other IDEs, but want you to use the optimal set of skills that you already have and build on the top of it, but not to fully remove it and ask you to learn the same things just done in a new way. Now let's talk what you need to do if you want to create new shortcuts. So in PyCharm you can not only preserve the shortcuts that you built from other IDEs, but also you can create your own shortcuts that are suitable for you. So if you can see, when I open the editor actions, you can see different operations that you can do with your IDE, and you can see how they're explained by simple words and also the keys needed to achieve those things. So you can see, if you want to choose a lookup item and insert dot, you are going to use this key. If you want to look up item, obviously you are going to press the return key, and so on and so forth, but you can definitely change those by simply selecting them and then add a keyboard shortcut from here. I'm not gonna do that because I already have my keys selected. And of course I would offer you to use the default PyCharm keys, but if you have some preferences here, you can definitely apply those preferences to the key map of PyCharm, and this is completely fine. Or instead, if you want to check what are the available shortcuts for your device, you can again go to preferences, key map, and then in a very simple way you can basically see all the shortcuts that you need. And not only that, but also if you use this search here, you can actually search for different actions and shortcuts. For example, if I write delete, you can see all the operations that involve delete here. So you can see delete the whole line, which is basically with command and the delete button, delete to the word end, and so on. Also, you can see their operations that are not defined right here, but you can definitely select them and add your shortcut in order to use this option. So you've seen that PyCharm allows you to find shortcuts for a particular action using the search functionality, which is quite useful. And it's actually widely used from programmers to find and customize their shortcuts in PyCharm. You can also use the find shortcut recursively if you press to this icon here, and also you can search for two shortcuts at the same time. Okay, so if I write here delete, I can actually search for the delete button pressed, and I can see what shortcuts I have available with the delete button. You can also check for if there is some combination between delete and some other button, but as far as I see, there are not much combinations with the delete button, so it's all good. So yes, that's all guys. This is how you're searching for shortcuts, and I already showed you how you can basically edit them. So this is all you need to know, and now you're really able to set up the colors, the font, the editor, and the shortcuts of your PyCharm depending on your preferences. And also you can select a type of tool that you want to clone shortcuts from, so you can really see how flexible this IDE is. This is going to be everything for this video, guys. Thank you for watching, and in the next one I will show you how to get started with the PyCharm projects. I'm uploading completely free programming courses every week, so make sure you hit the subscribe button to get more coding skills. Creating a PyCharm project. Hi everyone, I know that I already showed you how to create a PyCharm project, which we created right here, but now I want that we explore a little bit more on how you can create a project, what you can do while creating the project before the finalization of that creation, and what are the options there, so you can really do a lot before even creating and starting editing your project. So as you already know, we select a new project, and here we have a few options that are quite important. Now it is very important to understand that every PyCharm project is created in a way that you don't even need to have Python installed in order to run that project. And this is done with something called a virtual environment. And you can choose here a few types of virtual environment. So you can choose virtual environment, pipe environment, and Coda. And this is a folder that will be created inside your project with all the necessary Python code for you to run that project. Okay, so you get all the Python libraries within your project, so this will make your project to stand by its own. Then you have the location of your virtual environment, and as you can see here, our virtual environment is created inside our project, but also if you want to create a different folder with that virtual environment and then use it into other similar projects, you can definitely do it, but I always advise you to keep the virtual environment, and this means the Python basic libraries within your project, because this really simplifies and it makes your project able to run absolutely everywhere without the need to install, reinstall, and get different libraries that are not compatible, because you already have them inside. Then you have this section base interpreter, and this is the tool or the programming language which interprets your code. And what I mean by this is that, you know, PyCharm is basically detecting for errors, it detects if you imported the right library, and so on. So this is done by the interpreter, and you can have different Python interpreters, different Python versions, and in the different interpreters you might have different types of libraries. For example, if in the Python 3.9 from project 4, and this is an interpreter installed in some project that I previously created. So if in the Python installed for that project, I don't have installed the framework Flask, but I actually use a framework Flask in my project that I just created, well, then I will get an error from the interpreter, because the interpreter would say, okay, I don't recognize Flask as a library, and you have something called Flask, Flask, so there's an error here. And this is what basically this means. You can make your environment available for all projects. You can also import environment from different projects or from your general system. Okay, as you know, we already installed Python in our system, so we can import those libraries from that installation right here. And if you have previously configured interpreter, you can simply select this option here, with which you will not need a local virtual environment, but you can simply select, for example, the one that you have on your device. But I wouldn't advise you to do that, because if you want to install different type of libraries here, you install them in your local device, but not in your project. So your project might work only on your local device. And you can see how important it is to know those things, because this could really make a difference when trying to troubleshoot your project. Also, you can deselect that create main.py welcome script, because to be honest, all the files that we will create are going to be custom, and you don't need this type of automatically generated files, something that you might need to do with Java. And then if you select enter, you would see that your project will get started. This is your virtual environment that I was talking about, that is installed inside your project. So here you have all the Python libraries, wheels, pipes, where pipes are used for you to install different packages, while wheels are used to run different packages. And you can also see all the current libraries that you have installed. Obviously, if you want to use some additional library, everything is going to be saved here in the side packages. So if you use more tools, they are going to be installed here, and you will be able to use them in your code, which is going to be in a separate folder. Now I want to talk a little bit on how you can basically deal with files, with directories, those things. So as you can see here, you have your Python project. Okay, don't look at the external links and the scratches and consoles. You don't actually need that. Actually, let's select just the project files. Okay, so let's go to our project and let's close the virtual environment. We're not going to touch that. This will actually be updated automatically. And for example, here, if you hit the new button, you will notice that there is quite a big number of file types. So firstly, here you have the different type of directories. We have scratch file, just a file, so you can specify what is the extension of that file. You have directory, and you have Python package. So if you select Python file, this is basically a text file that ends with .py and has a Python code inside. This is nothing more than that. So if you want to create an empty Python file, which we will do right now, you just leave this to Python file and then write the name of your file. So let's write file test. Okay, and now as you can see, you are having a file underscore test, which is your first Python file. And for example, if you want here to import a library that is not within your virtual environment, let's see what will happen. So I will just do import, and then I will do Flask. Okay, and obviously you can see that we get an error because the Flask is not into our virtual environment. Luckily, in PyCharm, you can simply hover over Flask and install that package. So if I click that, you will see that something is happening here, and now this error disappeared, right? And you're getting a warning here because you haven't used Flask yet. But if you go now to the virtual environment and go to library, you can clearly see that here into your environment you have Flask installed. And since you're using this Flask environment, since you're using this virtual environment, now you're able to use Flask. And also you can see that also some other modules were added which need to be installed in order for you to use Flask. Okay, and also, as you might work in a very high volume of projects, so for that reason you might need to create a directories. Let's say let's create directory test. Okay, and directory is nothing more but a folder that contains Python files. So I can move my file to that directory. As you can see, you don't need to specify anything in the file, right? You don't need to type like in Java that this file is part of this package right here. But you can simply write your Python code without worrying about the directory that you have. And for example, if you want to print hello world, you can simply do it by initializing your main class. So for example, if I do if name equals main print hello world, okay, and you can see this arrow here. This means that we can run that file. So let's select run file test, okay, and you can see simply here that we have printed hello world. You can also print hello world in another way. So if you don't want to use this button here, you can simply delete this part, so you don't actually even need a main class, and you can select the run button from here and you get exactly the same result. So you can see how easy it's really to code with Python, and especially when using PyCharm. So you're seeing a few things into our interpreter right here. You're seeing the file that you are running, the full path to that file, okay? So first you see the virtual environment that you're using, which is this one, and also you're seeing the file that you're running, okay? The two components that are needed for you to run a program. And this is really important because sometimes you would have many different Python environments and you want to make sure that the environment that you're expecting is actually running your code. You're seeing then the result of your code, and finally, if you're getting any error codes, if the exit is 0, this means that there are no errors. Also, if you are having multiple outputs here, this window might get quite overfilled with a lot of data. So if you want to go actually to the end of the data, you can simply select this button, scroll to the end, and you can see that your cursor is getting to the end. Or for instance, you can simply select the command key and R in order to run your code again. Or instead of that, you can just select the run key here, which will again run your code again, and you can see how simple is that and how useful it is. So now guys, you can definitely create multiple directories, different Python files. You can also create not only Python files but different type of text files, front-end files, and so on, and you can run your code, which is the most important for continuing with the next sections of this course. You definitely have the basics now and you know how to operate with PyCharm. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next section where we're going to talk about improving considerably your productivity with PyCharm. Thanks for watching. Inside the project window. Hi everyone, and welcome back to this section where we're going to discuss the PyCharm interpreter and also how you can manage the packages and the modules here. So in this very first video, I want to describe to you some of the additional elements and to get little bit more of an insight to the project window of PyCharm. One element that I want you to pay special attention to is the search everywhere button, which is always going to be located into the top right corner here. So whenever you want to search certain function or tool into the PyCharm, you can always select this button and simply type either the name of the file, function, option, and so on. You also have the settings button here where you can select your preferences, theme, KeyMap, all those topics that we were speaking about in the previous section. You can basically access them from here, or you can search them into your everything search from here. Okay, so as long as you know those two buttons, you pretty much have a lot of control already to your IDE. Additionally, there are various miscellaneous components into your IDE that you should be definitely aware about. First of all, there are those scratches and consoles folder that you can see here. And so if I open it, you will see that we have some scratches here. And if you don't know what scratches are, they are actually a fully functional Python script that can run independently from the other files of the projects. So if you want to create additional scratches files, you can create them in the same way as you created the Python file in the previous section. Just select new scratch file, and then you can select some scratched file. For example, if I select git ignore, this is a file that would basically allow the user to select files that the user don't want to be uploading to Git. And actually, let's select this again. You can definitely see that a scratch file is actually located into the scratches folder, so they don't interfere with your actual project, as there are some additional files that are used for different type of manipulations in your project, but are not actual part of your project. So no matter how many projects you have opened, those crash files can be accessed from each of those projects. And this is quite useful in situations where you're working on a specific project and then you came up with a new idea for another project that you might want to save for later. You also have certain buttons here that are actually really useful, and if you write a code that you would like to access from the terminal, for example, sometimes when you're running Flask, you might want to run Flask from the terminal and test your code. You can run terminal directly from PyCharm instead of writing terminal and then having to access your project from there. So this is really convenient, especially if you want to run your code from the terminal and also automatically activate your virtual environment from the terminal again. And I can give you a comparison. For example, let's compare our terminal on the computer with the built-in terminal of PyCharm. So if I want to put my Mac OS terminal in the same state as the PyCharm terminal, or this is the state in which you can actually run project files, I will need first to access this folder, PyCharm project, and also I will need to activate the virtual environment. So if I check exactly where this folder is located, I can actually access it from the terminal with cd, and then if I paste it, okay, and now I need to activate my environment by source v bin activate. Okay, so you see all those commands are simply automated into the PyCharm, and you really don't need to have any knowledge about how to activate your virtual environment and how to access the folder, because this already happens automatically here. So really, if you don't need to deal with Linux-based commands such as those ones, simply access the PyCharm and access your terminal from here, and you would have your environment already set up. From here, you can also check the installed Python packages that you already have. So every time where some of your packages don't get accepted, as we saw the example with Flask, you can definitely select Python packages and check all packages that are available in your virtual environment. And for instance, if you don't see the package that you're expecting to have and you get error with, you can definitely install it so you have it in your virtual environment, and this is really helpful for the version and package control when you work on big projects. And trust me, for programmers, this is one of the key things that normally you spend most of your time, even more than writing your actual code. Then here you can also have the Python console, and this is another feature which is basically allowing you to test Python code directly. For example, if I write here print hi, okay, you will get the output directly. So as you can see, this is something like a Python console with which you can directly run Python code, and you don't need to write it in file and run it directly. And this is a very good way to test out the code from your file without the need to run the whole project, but simply writing it here. And of course, this is also something that you can access from your computer terminal. But to do that, not only you will need to activate your virtual environment to go to the required folder, but also you need to write Python 3, and then you're having the same window from your terminal. But in order to avoid writing those commands, you can simply access the terminal from here. And the final few things that I want to talk about is the problems tab, which you'll be able to see if you have any problems with your project. For example, here we have a warning that is saying that we imported Flask, but we are not using it. So if you're working on very large projects and you really want to see if you have any errors and to see a good list of your errors, you can check them from here. The To-Do tab is responsible for showing tasks that you need to implement, and you mark these tasks with To-Do. So again, if you work on very big projects, you can simply add those tasks and then you get the list here. And finally, you have the run button, or basically here is displayed your code from the runtime functionality, or when you run your project, you get here the output, the virtual environment location, and also the files that you're running. So that was everything for that video, guys. I think now you're quite familiar with most of the things that you see in front of you into PyCharm, and my idea is really to give you all the knowledge So when you look at those buttons displayed in front of you, you don't ask yourself any questions and you know how to use the amazing functionality of PyCharm. That's it. Thank you very much for watching this video and I will see you in the next navigation within the project. Hi everyone. Although you have the quite efficient everything search in PyCharm, it is really good practice to also know where to find the different functionalities in your project. And for example, let's say if you want to assess your preferences, you basically have three ways to do that. The first one is to select PyCharm from here, and you can see that you have preferences. The second one is to simply type it into the everything search, as you can see. And also you can access it here from the settings. You have the preferences right here. There is even a third way by pressing command and comma, where you directly access your preferences. So you can see that you have plenty of options to choose from when you want to access those. On Windows, basically you need to select Ctrl Alt and S, and you also access preferences. In general, it is a very good idea to take a note of the shortcuts associated with actions and tasks that your community or your company is using. Using shortcuts, as we know, can be much faster and more efficient than choosing simply a buttons and tabs from the menu. And if a specific option doesn't have a shortcut, you already know that you can definitely create a custom shortcuts and you can use your KeyMap to do that. And remember, PyCharm offers extensive flexibility in terms of customizing working environment and creating various shortcuts and also allowing you to have so many different terminal running directly Python code options. It's really making your coding very flexible and you very productive as a programmer. Now, another thing I want to speak about in this video are some options that I find really useful into my day-to-day tasks, and we can call those hacks, right? We can call those hacks because this is something that I found that really optimized my programming, and those are very simple stuff to do and learn. So the first one is, if you want to assess all projects that you previously used, you can simply close the current project, right? And you make sure that you saved all files, and then you immediately get the all projects tab and you can see all the projects that you previously were working on. And as you can see, I was working on some text-to-speech API, I was creating some Python games, so on and so on, and you can really access all of those projects from here, everything that you have available. So sometimes if you want to access different projects, simply close your current project and you will see this full list, okay? But let's go back to the project. As you can see, it is very easy to open and close project, and you're really not losing any of the informations or the setup that you had built in the past. Another very useful thing that I'm using into my day-to-day activities is I'm normally working on 3 or 4 projects at the same time. So always, if you have a project in front of you, you can simply select File, Open Recent, and then you see the same list or even longer list of projects that you were working on, and you can definitely find on the top the most recent projects that you've been working on. And if you select some of those, let's say if I select the first one, you get an option to either open it in this window or a new window. So since you want to work on 2 projects at the same time, you select new window, and then automatically this project will load on a new window, so you can work, as you can see, in both projects and you can switch between those. And finally, one option that would really improve your programming and it will actually automate it, this is really something like artificial intelligence the same way. So basically your IDE is going to generate code for you. Well, this is using macros. So if you select edit, then macros, and if you select this start macro recording option, this will record absolutely every type of code that you're writing, and it will allow you, once you run this macro that you just recorded, it will write the same code. okay, and it will use the same logic. This is something very important, especially if you're working on multiple projects and you have specific sequence of operations that you're working into certain type of functions, okay. This is nothing to do with copying your code, because obviously you can copy and paste your code, but this has something to do with recording the sequences of actions and pretty much have saved your coding style. Okay, so this is also something very powerful, which later we're going to talk about as well. So that was everything for the navigation and the tricks that I wanted to show you today. Thank you very much for watching, and in the next video we're going to talk about the panels in your project window. Panels in the project window. Hi everyone! In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to assess the view options, and here you see the two windowses or so-called panels. Those panels can be displayed dynamically and arranged within your project. And those are the two windowses. So if you go again to view, two windows, then you can see all those options here. So we have project, favorites, find, run, debug, problems, structures and services. So if you run Python code before from a text editor, for example, you typically edit the code using editing software, then open a terminal and run the Python command to execute the script. Here in PyCharm you have the terminal panel, as I showed you here below, and this is in the same window as the editor. And this is only one of the potential panels that you can include in your PyCharm workplace. So if you organize your Python panels, this will really gratefully improve your productivity as a programmer. For example, if I select two windows and I choose any of the options here, it will be automatically selected in the panel down here. For example, if I select problems, you see that here we're going to problems. And even more, you can actually drag, so take and drag this problem element and attach it, for example, on the right hand side, okay, if you feel that this is more comfortable for you. And then you can open your terminal down here. If you want to have the debug window opened at the same time, you can definitely drag it on the side, as you can see, and then you have your terminal opened from here as well. Okay, this is just one of the options that you can use. Okay, I can even drag the debug here, okay, and have the terminal on this side. For many programmers, actually it might be quite useful. Okay, let me bring it back. So as I said, it could be quite useful to have the terminal on one side and also the Python console on the other one. So you can simply take the console, move it, and now here I can write Python script. So let's say print hi, okay, but also I can have the terminal here, okay, and access my file system. For example, I can do Python 3 test and file test.py, and I can run this file here, okay. So I can have the terminal and also the Python console as well. You can also bring other windows too. You can bring services, as you can see. Actually, I can simply drag it here, right? You can bring the event log, as you can see. So everything that you feel that you would need while executing your project, you can definitely do, and this will really be automated and will run simultaneously in different windows in the way that you manage it while using PyCharm. Also, for example, if you let's say create a new file, so let's create a new Python file here and let's say test2.py. Not only you can manage those two files, but also you can actually display them in the same window and work in both of them simultaneously, right? So you can work in both of those files, and as you can see, you can zoom them separately. You can basically do everything you want. So let's close that one, and then the other will expand in the full window. As I mentioned, in the professional version of PyCharm, you can also have the sky view, which is another panel where you see different figures of what is produced by your code. But I will show you right now that you don't actually need sky view in order to display graph panels on your PyCharm. So let's actually write some code. Let's import math plot library. Okay, and we don't have installed this library, but you can just hover on it and select install package matplotlib. And then as you can see here below, this library automatically gets installed in your virtual environment. And if I select here Python packages and I go down, you can see the matplot library. So from here, let's write pyplot, okay, and then do as plt, okay. So this will add this package, but we'll refer to this package as plt. So let's do if name equals main, let's do x equals I for I in range 9, okay. And here what we're doing is basically choosing x to be a list from 1 to 9, and then y equals, and let's do the same thing, so I multiply 2 for I in range, and let's do 9 here. And then let's write plt dot plot, and then we'll simply plot x and y, and then let's do plt dot show, so we show the plot. And now once you run this code, you will see that you will get the plot panel in your PyCharm. So let's run the test too, okay? And you can see that you have your plot, and also not only that, but also when you hover over it, you can see the X and the Y locations of your arrow, and you can also zoom into the different aspects of your plot if you're interested in those things. And as you can see, you can actually zoom pretty close, and you can also go back. So as you can see, there are plenty of options. You can get some statistics, you can also save the chart, and so on and so on. So even for plots, and even if you don't have the professional edition, you can definitely plot absolutely everything you like. And really, if you would like to plot something related to Python, I advise you to use the pyplot because it is really easy to use. So this was all I wanted to share with you for today, guys. I hope now you have better understanding on how you can manage your panels and to deal with plots in PyCharm. Thanks for watching, and in the next video we'll talk and discuss a very important topic, which is going to be how to deal with packages in PyCharm. Thanks for watching. Installing and managing packages. Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about one of the most important topics, in my opinion, when dealing with any Python project, and this is how to install packages and how to manage them. In PyCharm, there are basically two main ways to install packages, and one of them is from the terminal right here, where you're in your virtual environment, and the other way is from the graphical installer, which you can find in preferences. So if you open here the preferences, I already showed you 4 ways for opening those, and you select your project here, you can click on the Python interpreter and you see all the packages that you have so far installed in your project, and you can see that you have here Flask, Jinja2, Markup Safe Pillow, and so on and so on. And then to install another package, you can click here on the plus button, and to uninstall a package, you can click on the minus button. So this will take action immediately, and for example, if I click on Flask and I select the minus button, then Flask is immediately going to be removed from our package system, as you can see. You should know though that when you install a package, sometimes this package requires another packages installed in order to run properly. So if you installed Flask, then you automatically get, let's say, Jinja2 and Pillow. So if you remove Flask, those other 2 packages, they are not going to be removed from your project, okay? It is very important to know and understand that. So let's hit the plus button and see what's happening. So here you can see that you are taken to another window where you can see all the packages available worldwide written for Python. You can see how many those are. It is crazy amount of packages that are written for Python, and all of those packages, they are predefined methods that you can use in real time. So you can either scroll down, or Instead, you can simply write the name of the package you want to install. So if I write here Flask, you can see that you can install Flask from here, and actually you can see also that we have many other packages related to Flask that you can install in your virtual environment. And this is not a surprise because Flask is one of the most famous RESTful web services building tools written in Python. I actually have a few courses related to Flask, so if you're interested, definitely refer to those. But anyways, you can simply select Flask and click on install package. So click here, and then you will see Flask is installed successfully. And then if you close this window, the window with the packages, you will see that you are having the Flask installed again inside your virtual environment. So this is the graphical way, which for some of you might be quite useful, but in general, I prefer way more having the packages installed from the terminal, because sometimes you might find it a bit easier. And for this you can use pipe. So if you do pipe uninstall and then Flask, and you can even make the terminal a bit bigger, you see that here with that command you can uninstall Flask. So then you get asked if you want to proceed, you select yes, and then Flask will be uninstalled from your device. And if you want to install a package back again, you can simply do pipe install Flask, and then Flask will be installed inside your device. Another way, as you probably already saw, is from the Python file that you're creating directly. So for example, let's import a library that is not existing here. For example, let's check the package Mongo, okay? And if you hover here, you see the installation button, so you can also install the Mongo from here, okay? Or any other package basically that you import. So you can install it also directly from the file, which actually I think using PyCharm is one of the best options, because you can simply select and automatically install all the packages you need. Another way to assess the interpreter settings in your packages is from this button here. So on the on the bottom right corner, you can see your current interpreter, and always check the version that is currently running your code. And if you click on it, you have access to the interpreter settings, and again you will see that you have different packages here that you can select. So really the quick access to what you need and to all the packages is from here, or you can simply select a new virtual environment which will run your code. So this is basically how you manage your virtual environment in Python, and this is, trust me, one of the most important things, because you could write your code perfectly fine, but if you don't have installed all the libraries required for that, then your code might just fail and you will not know what to do. So please make sure always from your interpreter settings that you have all packages installed and up to date. Very important. And also bear in mind that some Python projects that you're working on or you downloaded might require older versions of Python. So if you see, for example, here Python 3.9, but the code that installed, for example, runs Python 2.7, well, your code is expected not to work perfectly fine with Python 3.9. So you can definitely check here and add a different interpreter, for example. So let's do that and see what options we have available here. So if I select different interpreter, you can see that you can choose interpreter from here. For example, I can choose Python 2.7, I can choose Python 2, Python 3, and so on. It's of course always good that your interpreter points to your virtual environment. However, trying out different interpreters depending on the errors that you see from your code, because sometimes you might run a code and you might see that certain type of code is not accepted by Python 3.9, so you might want to try with different versions of Python. And you can definitely choose them from here. Again, the versions that you have displayed here also depend on the Python installations inside your device. So you can definitely install different versions of Python and run your code with them. So here is how you control the interpreter. So I hope after this video, guys, you will be quite clear with the packages and the interpreter that are running your code in Python, as this is quite important topic for being a professional Python developer and using all the nice features of PyCharm to optimize and control the interpreter version of your project, which you can definitely not do in this simple way using a text editor or most of the other IDEs on the market. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching that video, and I will see you in the next one.